This is Charles E. Shearer Jr., former President of the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce during the years of 1957 and 58, and JCI Senator number 1040. At a meeting of the Ohio Jaycee Senators held in Cleveland in the spring of 1962, I was asked to introduce the author of the Jaycee Creed for the purpose of his giving his interpretation of that creed. I was reminded when asked to perform this glad duty that I had the opportunity to present to the world one of those rare individuals whose name becomes synonymous with an organization. This situation arises because there are people who make outstanding contributions toward the organizations to which they belong, and in turn become an integral part of the real meaning and purpose of that organization. In the Junior Chamber of Commerce, we have had many individuals who on the local, state, national, and international levels are identified and thought of when one talks about these groups. Our founder, Henry Giesenbeer, was such a man who, having an idea of what the young man's responsibility to his community should be, gave birth to our great organization. And the Junior Chamber of Commerce and Henry Giesenbeer are thought of together. Bill Brownfield is a Jaycee who gave expression to our great association of young men. And Bill, like Henry Giesenbeer, is thought of when one speaks of the Junior Chamber of Commerce. Bill was born in Alliance, Ohio on March the 7th, 1915. 3 years later, he moved with his family to Columbus, Ohio, where he has lived and served his community since that time. In his business life, he has had a vast and varied experience. He is currently engaged in the real estate and insurance business. Bill is a product of Junior Chamber growth, and his impressive Jaycee background probably gives a real clue to his authorship of the Creed. He learned by doing, and Junior Chamber profited by this background. In addition to his activity with the Columbus, Ohio Jaycees, where he received his basic Jaycee training, he served as state president of the Ohio Junior Chamber of Commerce, and then became a vice president of the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce. Life memberships were given to Bill by the Columbus and Ohio Jaycees, and in further recognition for his outstanding contributions, he was named as one of the very few honorary members of the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce. And in addition to these honors, he is a senator in Junior Chamber International. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you a man whose heart and mind developed 65 beautiful words, which have become a way of life to many and an inspiration to thousands of young men throughout the world. The author of the Jaycee Creed, Mr. C. William Brownfield.
The Jaycee Creed minus the first line was written shortly after I returned from the Milwaukee Convention in 1946 and adopted by the United States Jaycees in 1947, followed by Jaycee International in Rio in 1948. It was completed in its present form in 1950 and adopted by the U.S. Jaycees and by JCI in the same year. The ideas expressed by the Creed are not claimed as original, except perhaps in the manner of presentation. I believe they fairly represent the faith of the Jaycees in the democratic way of life. Each Jaycee is free to interpret the Creed in the light of his own experience, and I speak only for myself when I explain what it means to me. The Creed makes a powerful assertion in its first two words, "We believe." The people of the free world need desperately to believe in the triumph of good over evil. For a long time we shall be engaged in a bitter struggle with communism a new form of an old tyranny. The outcome of this struggle may well depend, most surely will depend, upon the quality of faith in the hearts of free men. A weakness of the free world is a frequent failure to demonstrate faith in its basic principles. The descendants of those who wrote the Magna Carta, who broke the yoke of feudalism in Europe, and who have risen from colonial status to independence, often act as though freedom had been won for them forever. But to believe in freedom, to believe in democracy, is to live and to work in that faith so that all men may know what freedom means. If we stand fearlessly beside those who seek freedom for themselves, and if we lead out boldly toward the building of a better world, then the voice of free men will resound across the nations, and men will listen. But first of all, we must believe. Faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life. Through the ages, man has sensed the presence of a creative power in the universe. Many systems of religion and thousands of interpretations of natural phenomena have been developed to explain man's relationship to his Creator. As a salmon instinctively swims to waters he has never known, leaping over waterfalls he has never seen, and returns to the spawning pools of his ancestors, so man instinctively turns to God. All about us we see evidence of a great intelligence at work. To the sensitive mind, faith brings an ever-growing conviction that God is, that he is an absolute, an ultimate standard against which must be judged the good, the true, and the beautiful. Time and space are infinite, beyond the measure of man's mind. Yet the Spirit is not confined to these dimensions. Who can bound the depth and breadth of human compassion? Or where is there a wonder to compare to human thought? This glowing spark of life may be the most tremendous miracle in all creation. As compared to eternal time, it may be recent, but should we conclude that it has no meaning? Should we concede that man's life has no great purpose because we cannot prove it through laboratory tests? Without faith in God, life is a ship adrift on tumultuous seas. With faith in God, man's spirit soars to higher and ever higher realms of nobler living. The Jaycee membership, drawn from many religious backgrounds, is united by a common bond of faith that man lives by the will of God, that God's will for man is good, and that the life worthwhile is lived in harmony with his eternal plan. The brotherhood of man transcends the sovereignty of nations. It is difficult for man to see himself as a link in a chain of life, joining yesterday with tomorrow. It is natural for him to think of his time, his place, and his activities as the center of importance. But in the stream of history, life has flowed on through the centuries. Civilizations have come and gone. Empires have risen to heights of power, only to sink again into the dust. Man-made boundaries have been drawn and redrawn, separating the human race into many nations. But across these unnatural divisions, there has been an intercourse in art, science, commerce, and religion, evidence of man's universal brotherhood, proof that man himself, not his territorial divisions, is of basic worth. Historically, wars and revolutions have been disputes over power, the sovereign right to rule. In totalitarian countries, sovereignty is held by one man or a small group of men. In democracies, the people allocate to various levels of government such powers as seem wise, the power belonging to the people. The political structure of the world today is one in which every nation presumably is sovereign. As long as no nation has evil designs upon the others, this situation causes no problem. In the hands of dictators, however, sovereignty becomes a terrible weapon. A few vicious leaders bent upon world dominion, having the power to make war at will, force the other nations to arm themselves with weapons of enormous destructive power in the name of self-defense. The aggressor has the advantage of initiative in this tragic situation. It hangs like a sword of Damocles above the world. National sovereignty has been the greatest burden of the human race and now threatens the very survival of civilization. For many years, an effort to limit national sovereignty has been gaining power in the world. Its advocates would divide the power derived from the people, assigning a portion to a new worldwide level of government, thus controlling the power to make war. But because of the lack of maturity and sophistication in the international community, we fear some maneuver that could deprive us not only of the power to make war, but of internal freedoms as well, a price too high for free men to pay, even for peace or for life itself. Yet, if the human race is to endure, some device must be found to impose the majesty of law upon the sovereignty of nations, thus to preserve the brotherhood of man in dignity and freedom. Economic justice can best be won by free men through free enterprise. Through eons of time, man spent most of his waking hours in providing food, clothing, and shelter. With the coming of civilization, he developed a specialization of labor and earned a small portion of leisure time. Rather recently, he devised machines to assist him in his labor. But throughout his existence, he has depended principally upon himself for the satisfaction of his needs. Looking back over the ages, we see certain milestones of progress as man climbed toward the summit of the good life. Where economic improvement has been greatest, man has been free to follow his dream of making a personal fortune by doing something never done before or by doing it better. Such a system requires superior ability and great courage. Many men have ventured and lost, but it seems to be the only process capable of bringing forth that spark of creative genius which makes maximum progress possible. This foundation of individual initiative is the basis of our present high standard of living and the hope for future progress. In spite of, or perhaps because of, the amazing achievements of free enterprise since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, powerful groups have sought to gain political control of our economic system. Few men deny that controls are necessary to prevent exploitation and monopoly, but the advocates of socialism would go far beyond reasonable regulation and virtually destroy private capital. The working man in the city and on the farm has the greatest stake of all in the freedom of private enterprise. It is from his ranks that most of tomorrow's leaders will come, and it is into his pockets that most of the cost of production and distribution will go. It is to him as a consumer that the products he makes will be sold at prices so low as to be unbelievable in countries with state-controlled economies. But if he is to save the goose that lays his golden eggs, the working man will have to believe in our system and help to protect it from the killing burden of unreasonable taxation and regulation. Many parts of the earth are in great need of economic assistance. This need is so tremendous that the industrial nations could pour all of their surplus capacity into projects of aid, and it would make no lasting difference. But the system of self-development through private enterprise could be adapted with variations to suit local conditions in many parts of the world. Man can build a new world free of want and suffering without selling his birthright of freedom for a mess of state-controlled pottage. Jaycees believe in free enterprise and will work for its preservation. Government should be of laws rather than of men. The public servant occupies a difficult position, a line between the temptations of power on the one hand and weak leadership on the other. In free society, the fundamental law is derived from the people. It is they who hold the final authority. Their law is established in a constitution as the foundation upon which government rests, and only they can change it. This we call government of laws. In many countries, a pretense of constitutional government is maintained, while in reality it is a government of men. Civil and criminal law is amended without the consent of the people, who have no free elections and no opportunity for relief from oppression. Life and liberty are placed in jeopardy without due process of law. The people are taxed without their consent, live and work as directed, and are told what they must accept to be true or false. In times past, men could more easily rebel and throw off the yoke of bondage. Today, however, the weapons controlled by the state make armed revolt all but impossible. The free world listened in anger, sorrow, and humiliation as the radio voice of the freedom fighters in Hungary was silenced before the oncoming Soviet tanks. They pleaded desperately for help, but there was no help. All around the world, lights of freedom have been snuffed out by governments of men. Now, as the limit of man's horizon reaches into distant space, we look for signs of good or evil in this new era. But there is no mystery. The truth is clear. If we establish the supremacy of law, we shall be free. If we allow the rule of godless men, we shall be slaves. Free government in America and in other democratic countries must not be lost. It was for this very liberty that our ancestors worked, fought, and died. And it is for this same liberty that we now set our defense against the openly hostile forces of communism. But we must beware that in our fear of external enemies, we do not lose our freedom from within. Our institutions will survive if we perfect our government of laws through work, study, and civic service, resisting the glittering promises of power-hungry men. This is both the duty and the opportunity of the Jaycees in America and in all of the countries of the free world. Earth's great treasure lies in human personality. In the last 100 years, we have taken from the earth more material treasure than all humanity had seen before. In our factories and mills, we have created an abundance of commodities undreamed of a century ago. A new day has dawned in the world, a new way of life, with new machines, new methods of travel and communication, and new discoveries of all kinds. But with this material advance have come a great many problems. It seems that things by themselves do not make people happy. Suicide, crime, divorce, juvenile delinquency, mental illness, violent death, and war give us reason to ponder the relative values of men and their possessions. Actually, true value lies not in the machine itself or in the product, but in the use to which it is put for the satisfaction of human needs. Indeed, many wise men who placed small value upon the material wealth of the world have made priceless contributions in the realm of literature, art, music, science, religion, and the general increase of knowledge, treasures of enduring value. Through the ages, our accumulation of these intangible products of human personality has become a priceless heritage to which is added a portion every year. It cannot rust, decay, wear out, or be consumed. It knows no race, creed, or color, no class or station. True treasure lies in the hearts of men. There is about us a vast field of opportunity for cultivation of the human personality. It is not the quantity, nor the length of life that gives it zest, but the quality of living, the achievement we make in terms of human progress. Service to humanity is the best work of life. The choice of a life's work is one of our most important decisions. A good worker on the right job is a real credit to the community and the backbone of free society. But quite beyond working for a living, there is a choice that many have made involving extra hours of work and the expenditure of great amounts of energy and sometimes money. Free people have organized hundreds of independent agencies which have magnificent records of service. How wonderful it is that these things have been done by the people themselves. Each of these organizations depends upon the leadership and work of its individual members. The priceless ingredient for success is the devotion of the free man who voluntarily says with conviction, "I will do my part in this worthy project." There is such great need for kindness, helpfulness, and understanding. Even with all the wonderful work now being done, the field is not overcrowded. Satisfaction is usually the only reward, and yet what else is there that really counts? The life lived unselfishly grows richer, deeper, and fuller. Joy is more enduring, and peace of mind more certain. The world looks at the contribution such a life has made and marks the one who lived it as a benefactor of the race. Yet he knows in truth that greater benefit has been his own. The Earl of Devon was a very wise man who composed his own epitaph. "What I gave, I have. What I spent, I had. What I kept, I lost." Too often we lose the opportunity to be a good neighbor. It would be well to make helpfulness a habit and participation in worthwhile activities a deliberate plan for living. There is no doubt about it. Service to humanity is the best work of life. This, then, is my personal interpretation of the meaning of the Jaycee Creed. But only in the deed can the word become flesh. As these young men around the world join in the thrilling experience of active Jaycee participation, we can be sure they will leave the world a better and more beautiful place than they found it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill Brownfield. I think it would only be fitting at this time if we all stood and joined together in reciting the Jaycee Creed. We believe that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life, that the brotherhood of man transcends the sovereignty of nations, that economic justice can best be won by free men through free enterprise, that government should be of laws rather than of men, that Earth's great treasure lies in human personality, and that service to humanity is the best work of life. Thank you, gentlemen. Meeting is adjourned.